It kind of reminds you if you can't forgive, can't be forgiven. A lot of people are really quick to want to extract a debt that somebody owes them, or they think that they're owed, not realizing the debt they owe. And it's a bad situation to be in. It's a mindset that Yahweh's Spirit tries to impart upon us that we should refrain from. So today I wanted to start with the chapter in Exodus, chapter 34. And so I wanted to remind everyone that when we were, Exodus 34, so when we were in the, keeping the Passover, the days of unleavened bread, we had a milestone, that milestone being that we started the count. You know, a lot of times, especially in the authorized version, King James Version, there's a misunderstanding about people coming together, and it's interpreted the first day of the week. And that's kind of used as to support the change from the Sabbath to Sunday, because they interpret that they were meeting on the first day of the week. What is really being said there in the scriptures, it says they met on the first of the weeks. And if you remember, Yeshua said to the disciples to not leave, but to stay, because the Comforter was coming. This was the count, or what we refer to as the Feast of Weeks. So you start that count the day after the Sabbath that falls within the days of unleavened bread. So we are now today ending the second week, and we're fixed to go into the third week. Tomorrow would be the start to the third week. So we are in as the scriptures say, we are in the days, the first of the weeks. We're looking towards that. So in Exodus, the 34th chapter, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was that when you're reading the chapter, you know, and 34th chapter of Exodus kind of is a hinge point. One of the things that you might kind of make note of is that Yahweh said unto Moses, hew the 2 tablets of stone, like unto the first one, and I will write upon these tablets the words that were in the first tablets which you broke. Now, we know why Moses broke them, but just for a sense of relevance here, Moses was on the mount 40 days and 40 nights. He's waiting for Yahweh's given him instruction of everything, including how to build the tabernacle. Think about what Moses saw in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. If you really stop and think about it in a detailed manner, all of the words of Yahweh, all of the statutes, all the commandments, and all of the ways to build the tabernacle, so that Yahweh, the reason for the tabernacle was so Yahweh could dwell with his people. I mean, just that alone should give you pause to think that Yahweh so orchestrated a perfect tent of meeting that he could be in the midst of his people. Then he comes down and what do they find? They are given credit to Baal, this golden calf, for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. I mean, you just saw miracles that no nation on the face of the earth had ever seen. And now you're given this credit to a molten calf that Yahweh instructed plainly never to do. But it's not bad enough that you're worshiping the calf. You're giving the credit that Yahweh just did to that calf. I mean, no wonder Moses was so wroth that he broke the tablets. But when I'm reading this and I'm thinking, okay, and he says, be ready in the morning and go up into Mount Zion. This is kind of a side note to what I'm talking about here. But isn't it interesting that Moses broke the first tablets? And you think about it in terms of covenants. Did we not break the first covenant? But Yahweh said, what would he do? He would make a new covenant with the house of Israel. And where's he going to write that law and statutes? In the hearts. So there's parallels in the scriptures when you look at them everywhere. Do you not know that Yahweh knew that Moses was going to do what he did? Of course he did. But he put him back up there again for 40 days and 40 nights and gave him another set of commandments. And I think about Yeshua the Messiah after he's baptized, 40 days and 40 nights. And he's come to truly write the commandments of Yahweh upon these hearts of stone and to turn them into tablets that obey Yahweh, that love Yahweh. So that being said, Yahweh, the story is fascinating when you read about how Yahweh went by him in the cloud, proclaimed. I notice that he says, in verse 7, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving the iniquity and the transgressions and the sin, that by no means clear the guilty. In other words, just because he forgives you of your sin doesn't mean the sin didn't exist. You know, when Yahweh says that he will forgive the children of Israel, and they will see that forgiveness and they will abhor themselves in their own sight. We are truly in his presence going to feel that in a way that will break us entirely. We think about it, we desire to follow him, but when we see his presence and know that he has given us the ability to be in his presence, I think it will be such an overwhelming thing that it'll totally break us. And for good reason. And one that I'm not ashamed to say that I hope that happens. So he says, keep in mercy for thousands. You know, it's just what we read here. Yahweh, Moses said, don't kill them because, you know, it's going to be a bad report for you. Everything, when you read the scriptures, everything Yahweh says was for his name's sake. Everything is about his name's sake. Because the battle is not against flesh and blood. The battle against spiritual wickedness in high places. Who do you think is trying to usurp the authority that Yahweh has? It's Satan. This is the battle. Who is the creator? Who is the one that is the most powerful? Who is it that you owe your allegiance to? Who has the power to sustain everything and created everything and will restore everything? I mean, they're going to try to give that power, they're going to try to give those accolades to Satan. We know that's coming. So we're prepared for it. Mentally, I hope that we are prepared for it. And physically, Yahweh's going to give us the strength to get through with whatever we need to do. But one of the things I want to jump down to is that in verse 18, it says, he warns, well, verse 16, he's warning them, look, do not worship me after the nations. This is verse chapter 34. Do not worship me after the nations. Because he just broke the tablets of stone because they'd already started doing it. And verse 16, Don't take of their daughters unto thy sons, for their daughters go a whoring after their Elohims, and make thy sons go a whoring after their Elohims. They shall make no molten, they shall make thee no molten deities. The feast of unleavened bread you shall keep. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, in the time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib you came out of Egypt. Now, it says, all that opens the matrix is mine, every firstling of cattle, whether it be sheep or sheep that is male. But the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with the lamb, and redeem him not, you break his neck. And the firstborn of every son you shall redeem, none shall appear before me empty. 6 days shall you work, 7 days the Sabbath, you shall keep it a rest, whether it is earing time or in harvest time. So there's only 2 times, earing time and harvest time. This kind of encompasses the entire time of when Yahweh's work. And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and then the feast of ingathering at the year's end. So I wanted to bring out the fact the feast of weeks, first fruits of the wheat. The feast of weeks is the first fruit of the wheat harvest. I thought, what's interesting? I want to do a little quick look at the wheat. What has wheat got to do with a lot of things in the scripture? One of the things that I did not really think about, after I read the story, I was really kind of moved by it, because in the book of Ruth, there's 2 times the scripture refers to first fruits: the barley harvest and the wheat harvest. The Feast of Ingathering, there is no mention of first fruits. Now, 3 times we are to appear before Yahweh. So there's, out of those 3, 2 of the times have first fruits that are brought before Yahweh. Yeshua was the only first fruits of the barley harvest. When we read, touch me not, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. He was that wave sheaf offering. He was the first fruits from the dead, the resurrection. Harvest times are spiritual. Remember, it's not about flesh and blood. It's about spiritual wickedness in high places. The restoration. Yahweh is going to not allow his creation to die if they follow him. He's going to redeem them. So death is not in Yahweh's plan, but those who do not follow Yahweh's plan, it will be the end of their existence. So with that in mind, the first fruits, it's interesting that you have this concept of first fruits in Ruth. She's a Moabite. So I'm in the 2nd chapter of Ruth. You don't have to go there if you don't want to. You can just make a mental note or write down a note and go after it. But Naomi had a kinsman, and of her husbands, a mighty man of wealth, and the family of the Elamish, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean ears of the corn. The word corn here is it's a Hebrew word, and it means cluster. Or it's like corn is not, it's not really talking about corn. It's talking about a cluster, like barley when it grows and you have the head of it, it's at a cluster. The word is used in that regard. Wheat, when it grows, it's in a cluster. Grapes, when they grow, they're in a cluster. Even olives, when they grow on the tree, they're in a cluster. So this term is what's being referred to here. And it says that she asked, could she go and glean in the fields after the reapers? Think about this term reapers, because we're gonna visit this in a little bit. So it says, and her hap was too light on the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the kindred of the, I can't say the word, Elmish. Anyway, and so Boaz came from Bethlehem, interesting, and said unto the reapers, Yahweh be with you. And they said unto him, Yahweh bless you. And Boaz said unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, This is the Moabitess damsel that came back with Naomi out of the land or the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean. And she said, I pray you, he's talking to Boaz and saying, she asked him to let her glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and has continued here from the morning until now, that she tarried a little, but she tarried just a little bit in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here with my maidens. Let thy eyes be on this field, that they do reap, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men that they should not touch you? And when you are athirst, go into the vessels and drink of that the young men have drank. Then she fell on her face and bowed down to the ground and said, Why have I found grace in your eyes? Why shouldest thou take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Boaz answered and says, It hath fully been showed to me all that thou have done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thy husband, and how thou hast left thy father and mother in the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which you did not know. You know, that's exactly the words he said to Abraham. There's a lot of parallelism here, isn't it? And she's there when they're reaping, and she's gleaning. And it goes on to say that Boaz says, Yahweh recompense thy work, and full reward be given thee of Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, under whose wings you art come to trust. Revelation. Where's the woman? The wilderness, the 2 weeks. I mean, we all know, I think everybody here knows, the story of Ruth and Boaz and how it is a spiritual parallel to Israel and Yeshua. But the more you understand it, the more blessed you are by it. And so as I was reading this, I kept finding things that's identical to that, and that's identical to that. I'll give you an example. She's there reaping or gleaning right from what they're reaping. Do you remember the story when I think it's I think exactly where it was. Maybe Matthew 15. I think it's Matthew 15. And here we have this woman that's following after them. And she's begging, saying, Have mercy on me, son of David. I'm in verse 22, 15, 22 of Matthew. Have mercy on me, the son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a demon. And he answered her not a word. And the disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. And he answered and said to her, I am not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. A verse is sorely overlooked by the traditional religions of this world. He said, I am not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Anyway, and he answered and said unto her, it is not meet that I should take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs. And she said, truth, master, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall off the master's table. What's Ruth getting? She's getting the crumbs that are falling off of the master's table. Now, Yeshua said that amount of faith was impressive to him. So he healed her daughter. So here's Ruth, kind of in the same situation. She's a Moabitess. She's not of the children of Israel. Yet, if you continue to read this scripture, Yahweh, Boaz says, I will be your near kinsman. And I will do the duty of a near kinsman. That's what Yeshua is for us. And the reason I brought this up is because he told her to stay. Yeshua told the disciples, don't leave, stay. Because the day's coming when the Comforter will be poured out upon them. It's interesting that Boaz tells Naomi and her daughter, verse 22, that Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, I'm back in Ruth, by the way, second chapter, it is good, my daughter, that you should go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. And so she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean in the field or in the end of the barley harvest and also the wheat harvest. He asked her to stay. That time period is something that for us, we should be looking at that as a time when Yahweh is going to pour out his spirit. I know they thought that in the time when the tongues hit them, they thought this was the fulfillment of the book of Joel. But we know it was not the fulfillment of the book of Joel. Because if you read and continue, that is the great and terrible day of Yahweh. That is the day that Yahweh will come and clean everything up. So I thought it's interesting that the wheat had to do with Naomi. I never really put the two and two together that she stayed from the barley to the wheat and what Yahshua said to his disciples. And I thought there's a blessing in that. But there's a couple other examples, and there's many of them, but there was a couple, and I'll share these quickly. One was in the book of Samuel. So it seems like things happened around the time of the wheat harvest. And there were some things that are very, I think, kind of prophetic, some things that are really important. One being in the book of Samuel, the 6th chapter. You know, remember when Israel, they got stomped by the Philistines. I mean, they got routed. So bad so that they took the ark. You remember the story? They took the ark and they kept putting the ark into the places where all their deities were. And Yahweh kept bringing judgment upon every one of their deities to the point that they said, man, we got to take this thing back. It is kicking our butt. And in 1 Samuel chapter 6, this is the return. They're bringing the ark back, and they're bringing back with some gold items that they have delivered with it, showing that, you know, hey, whether it be mice or these different things, these golden things that this is a tribute because your Elohim just kicked the butts of every one of ours, and we don't want it no more. You can have it back, and we're going to pay for the time that we had it. And this was their way of doing it. And so they're bringing the cart, and I thought it was interesting that when they brought the cart, what were the children of Israel doing when they looked up and saw the cart? They were reaping wheat. They were in the wheat harvest. Pentecost. Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. Another thing that happened that was kind of interesting was in First Chronicles chapter 21, David made the mistake of going and asking that the children of Israel be numbered. And if you remember, he always said, do not do that. And he did it, and then he found out that was something that he should not have done. So Yahweh gave him a choice. Choose this or choose me, but one way or the other, there's going to be an accounting for what you've done. And so David chose that to be punished by Yahweh. He said, I will fall under his mercy. So I thought it interesting when the angel, this is in Chronicles 21:20. If you can make a note there. I'm not going to read every bit of it, but I just felt in Yahweh's spirit that this has something to do with what I want to share as the main message. So in First Chronicles 21, David said unto Yahweh, verse 8, I have sinned greatly because I have done this thing, but now beseech you to do away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. And so Yahweh said, either 3 years of famine or 3 months to be destroyed by your foes, while the sword of the enemies overtake thee, or else 3 days the sword of Yahweh, even the pestilence in the land, and the angel of Yahweh destroying throughout all the coast of Israel. Now therefore advise thyself what word I shall bring again to him that sent me. And David said unto Gad, I am in a great strait. Let me now fall into the hand of Yahweh, for very great are his mercies. But let me not fall into the hand of man or his enemies. David wrote a lot about that in the Psalms, didn't he? Do not deliver me over to my enemies. This may be one of the reasons that he really talked about that a lot. So Yahweh sent a pestilence upon Jerusalem, and there fell in Israel 70,000 men. And Yahweh sent an angel into Jerusalem to destroy it. And while he was destroying, Yahweh beheld, and he repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed, it is enough, stay your hand. And the angel of Yahweh stood by the threshing floor of Oran the Jebusite. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of Yahweh standing between heaven and earth, having his sword drawn in his hand stretched out over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders of Israel, who were clothed in sackcloth, fell upon their faces. And David said, It is not I that I have commanded the people to be numbered. It is I have sinned and done evil. But as for these sheep, what have they done? Let not thy hand, I pray thee, be the place of this threshing floor. And we know threshing floor was where they were threshing wheat. Where David stayed Yahweh's hand. I don't know if I really should say that I want to see the angel of Yahweh standing with his sword drawn, or I don't want to see the angel. But part of me is I really do want to see the angel of Yahweh standing with his sword drawn. Not at me. But could you imagine that? I mean, it's common that people think about, the power, the might of the United States and its Air Force and its Navy. I'm not saying we don't have power and might. That would not be a true statement. But compared to what Almighty Yahweh has, it is like, reminds me of when I was a kid. And they used to, back in the day, kind of date myself, used to get these little bags of army men that were about that tall. And we used to set them up on little dirt hills and take BB guns and shoot at them. And that would be like the United States Army out there and being shot at by someone, of a stature that's big enough to take BB guns and shoot at them like they don't even exist. This is how powerful Yahweh is. It is more powerful than man can number. Einstein said, I think it's MC squared. C squared? Huh? E equals MC squared. Yes. Energy equals MC squared. So if you think about that, E equals MC squared, if we could actually we split atoms to make energy. So this is the concept. You're taking matter and you're splitting it and you're turning that into energy. So if man could harness, I read this one time in a scientific journal, that if man could efficiently 100% harness the energy from the matter of the size of a basketball, it would destroy the earth. Now, reverse that thought. How much energy do you think that it takes to make that much matter? Because if A equals B, it's the opposite is true. If the matter can be made into energy, it took energy to make the matter. You follow what I'm saying? It just didn't make the earth. He made the heavens, which cannot be numbered. How much energy do you think that is? That's who you serve. When it says, fear not, don't fear. So anyway, I thought that one of the things that would be interesting to talk about, I've had this conversation a little bit about the wheat. So, brethren, I'm going to share with you, turn with me to Matthew 13. So, in the 13th chapter of the book of Matthew, and we're going to start with verse 24, because Joshua was always talking about the parables of the kingdom of heaven. Now, Luke 13:13 says that the law and the prophets were until John the Baptist. From John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven is preached. Think about that. The kingdom of heaven is preached after John the Baptist, because John the Baptist says, behold the Lamb. So there's a direct correlation to this. That's why it says in the book of Daniel, there's 70 weeks. He was cut off in the middle of the week. But what was he doing? He said in Isaiah, he got up, the first time he got up to read, that's recorded in the scriptures for us, he says, I have come to proclaim the acceptable year, the year of release. He came to establish the kingdom on earth. He said that after they took John the Baptist, they took the kingdom by force. He's the kingdom. We're not just the servants, but we are the inheritors of that kingdom. So he's teaching about a parable, verse 24. And he says, another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. And when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So my wife reminded me of this. She hates when I say this, but anyway, she don't need to talk about it. But anyway, she says, and she's right. When wheat becomes fully mature, one of the things that it does is it bows. The grain bows over, but the tares don't. So Yahweh says the humble shall inherit the earth. A lot of parallels between harvesting and spiritual harvesting. The things that we cannot fully understand, we can see more clearly by the things we can see. So the servants of the household came to and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? Well, where did these tares? Where do they come from? And he said unto them, verse 28, Matthew 13, he said, an enemy hath done this. And the servant said unto him, will thou then go and gather them up? And he said, no, lest you, while you gather up the tares, you root also the wheat with them. Let them grow together until the harvest. In the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, go and gather together first of the tares and bind them into bundles and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. It's interesting. The first thing he's going to go get is the tares and burn them, and the wheat goes into the barn. And so he talks about another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a grain of mustard seed, and we've all read that. Another parable, verse 33. This one's also key. It says, he spoke another parable unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal until the whole was leavened. Why would the kingdom of heaven be likened unto leaven? Yeshua said, beware of the leavens of the scribes and Pharisees. We just left the days of unleavened bread. But do you know that during the Feast of Weeks, that the first fruits are to be brought before Yahweh with leaven? Leaven can never be, I've heard people say, well, leaven is sin. No, it is not sin. It is teaching that can lead to sin, but leaven is not sin, because sin would never be offered on the altar before Yahweh, ever. He would never prescribe it. So therefore, it's an automatic, rule it out. Don't let nobody ever tells you that. That's not true. But the word of Yahweh instructs you, and it will keep you safe. Leavening is what Yeshua's word is. He came to proclaim the commandments. And you know what? He also said, I have come to proclaim your name. Why did Yeshua need to proclaim the name of Yahweh to Judah and Israel? Because they were given the glory to others, not to Yahweh.
Saying it out loud.
Well, there's a lot. Satan's been busy through all of the different monotheistic, quote, monotheistic religions. They all have one thing in common. They deny the name of Yahweh. They either hide it, forbid it, or just discount it. Do you know what the word don't take his name in vain means? It means don't make it null. Don't make it void. Don't make it without something. It has nothing to do with cursing. It has everything to do with making it go away.
Or perhaps misrepresenting it by being right on the same.
Well,
That's avoiding it.
you should, avoiding, to me, it's making it go away. Period. You could go, Yeshua, they claim that Yeshua threw out the devils by Satan,
Being the
right?
devil.
Yeah. But he said a house divided does not stand. And they also came to him and said, this guy over here is casting out demons in your name, and we didn't give him authority. Let us go and we'll tell him to stop. And he said, why? If he is for us, he is not against us. It was not, Yeshua didn't, you think, oh man, he's prideful. He's going to say, no, I didn't give him the right to do that. The Spirit of Yahweh, Yahshua understood the Spirit of Yahweh more than we will ever know it.
Today, the Jews have changed the name of Yeshua. They put a Y-E, they convinced half of them Y-E-A.
Yeah.
And that comes from the Jews.
Yeah.
From them, so we don't use the name God.
So anyway, I love that conversation, but if I don't get onto this, I'm not going to get there. So sorry. So it's taking a while to get there, but here's the deal. So Yeshua says in verse 34, said to the multitudes in parables, and without a parable he did not speak to them, that it might be fulfilled, that was just spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, and I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundations of the world. These parables that he's referring to, they're secrets in the foundation of the world. Did you get that? Secrets in the foundations of the world. Parables are very important. Then Joshua sent the multitude away, and so basically his disciples came to him and said, declare us the parable of the tares of the field. And he said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. So we know who that is. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. So what is it that sets the children of the kingdom apart from the children of the world? Because he goes on to say, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. So we have a clear distinction. The children, the wheat is the children of the kingdom, and the tares are the kingdom of the world. The one thing that sets the children of the kingdom apart is they are looking for Yahweh's kingdom. He told us to pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. They ask him, will you now restore the kingdom to Israel? In the book of Acts, before he ascended into the cloud. The kingdom, he says, the law and the prophets were until John the Baptist, and after that, the kingdom of Yahweh. So the kingdom of Yahweh is what is being referred to here. So the tares, who are the tares? The tares are the wicked ones. We got Matthew, later on in the book of Matthew, in the 24th chapter, he says, before I get there, let me just finish the context of what's going on here. So he says, and the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil, Satan. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. So we have a clear distinction of what he's referring to about the wheat and the tares. Reapers are angels. The harvest is the end of the age. You understand? The end of the age. People look at the little country over in Israel and say, well, Yahweh's gathering Israel together. No. Judah's there with Israel attached to him and whoever else is there with him. But that is not the lost sheep of the house of Israel being gathered together and the two sticks being brought together. Trust me, when that day comes, you won't need CNN or somebody else to tell you, oh, did you know that happened? Because when you were asleep, because you won't be asleep. And you will know. The whole world will know. So this is not something that's going to be, just pass you by and you're not going to be aware of it. And it says here, the Son of Man shall send his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all that offend. What was he just said in the book of tares? He said, oh, he's gathered the tares first. What is he going to do here? He's going to gather those that offend. Then he says, I will gather those, Son of Man shall send his angels, they shall gather out of his kingdom those that offend, and them that do iniquity, lawlessness. The law don't matter, you don't have to keep the law. Well, it does. Because without the law, you know that there's no redemption. You know the law of redemption is in the law. And if you're looking to Yeshua as your Redeemer, you better be grateful there's a law still exists. Because if there's no law, there's no redemption. And if there's no redemption, you're in bad shape. Because what your reward is not going to be good. So therefore, and he shall cast him into the furnace of fire, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. The kingdom. So the tares are tore out. Rest are in the kingdom. Matthew 24, verse 31. This is after the tribulation. He says here, and he shall send his angels with a great shout of the trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven unto the other. Well, you know what? I think Revelation 7 said something about that. Matter of fact, in the book of Revelation, in the 7th chapter, it says, after these things, I saw the four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow upon the earth, nor the seed, nor any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from heaven, ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. Hurt not the earth, neither the seed nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, which were 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. And after that, we read the great multitude, which could not be numbered, that washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. 144,000 and the great multitude, which no man can number. Where are they going? They're going to the kingdom. So the point here is this. Today, we stand, and how do you know the tares from the wheat? Who are the tares? They're the children of the wicked. Lawlessness. We always call it a sheep. There's a lot of lost sheep. We've all been lost sheep. We've all been there. So do not be quick to judge who is a tare and who is a sheep, because Yahweh knows. But the one thing he did say was leave them alone. Because who's going to do the gathering? Yahweh's angels are going to do the gathering. So a lot of times we want to feel this urge in ourselves to step in and maybe do something on Yahweh's behalf. There was a time and place for that. Yahweh gave them words to do that. Yahweh gave them instructions from his prophets. But he has not given us those instructions. The patience of the saints. And it's going to take a lot of patience to sit there and watch tares growing next to the wheat. And your urge is going to be to go and root up the tare. But he says if you do so, you might also uproot the wheat. It's a lot of patience. While we pray that Yahweh finds us worthy to be that first fruits, Because he has a purpose. The reason we know what we know, the reason Yahweh has opened our eyes to this, is because he is bringing up a nation of priests and kings to be with him during the time of the kingdom when it's set up. It's extremely important that we understand the calling that he has given to us. To open our eyes and try us and test us to see if we're worthy, and we will cross that line like Levi did. Because I still contend that Levi should have never been the first people to cross that line when Moses came down and saw the calf and the golden image. The first person that should have been across that line was the firstborn, because they were the only ones that were going to die. They're the only ones that the blood redeemed. Everybody else in that house got out of Egypt because of them, because of his making a distinction between them and the tares. So I just pray that Yahweh gives us the encouragement and the patience to wait upon Yahweh. Because one of the things I didn't know how to, a lot of times I'll tell you, I'll just open up the Bible and start reading. And sometimes I think, man, that's awesome. I just want to talk about that. But I already kind of talked about this, but I opened up the other night, Isaiah 40, and I was telling Connie, I said, man, I've read Isaiah 40. I was just moved by Isaiah 40. So I want to encourage you with the last verse of the chapter of Isaiah 40. It says, but they that wait upon Yahweh shall renew their strength, and they shall mount up with wings as eagles. We just read that, didn't we? And they shall not run, and they shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not be faint. Wait upon Yahweh. Wait. He'll take care of the terrors. You just take care of yourself. Make sure that we do everything that we need to do to be found worthy to be included in that kingdom. Anybody's got any questions or anything, I'll try my best to answer it.
I have a little piece of information Dale's wife shared with me. She was looking in, and that the word there that's tear.
Darnell.
It's a particular
Darnell.
Yeah.
It's a particular kind of thing. It's identical to wheat. It's a harvest time.
Yeah.
And then the wheat bows its head.
Yeah.
And then the darn.
Now, so the three dogs.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
And if they get mixed in, so and Bullinger has a note on that, and I was going to read it, but one of the things that also found interesting in Bullinger's note about it was that if it gets mixed in with the grain, it makes it bitter. So, kind of makes you think about the book of Exodus right there when they murmured against Yahweh, bitterness. Yahweh's bringing them to a land of milk and honey, and all they could do is bitterness. Yahweh said, I'm tired of this. I'll just wipe them out. But Moses said, no, for your name's sake, stick with the plan. And Yahweh says, in the end, it's because of his name's sake that he will restore us to the kingdom, and that he will bring us into a righteousness that we do not deserve. But it's a promise that he has promised for those who faithfully wait upon him and obey his commandments and believe in Yeshua Messiah. Yes, Lisa, you had one. But the what?
About leavening.
Oh, leavening, yes.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 5, when it's talking about
Leavening.
speaking to him about guy who's
Yes.
and it says your boasting is not good. Leaven leavens the entire. Therefore, cleanse out the old leaven so that you're not. So I think my mind, like for leavening, because I do know that it talks about the kingdom of Yahweh, but something that expands. With the kingdom of Yahweh, it's something that expands. With the Pharisees, the leavening of the Pharisees was hypocrisy, sin. And so beware of that so that it does not expand.
Yeah.
And when they were having this congregation, it was a representation. But I think it's something that when you're, whatever subject that you're talking about, it's something that expands.
Was, leaven can definitely lead to sin,
Yeah, it can make,
Yeah. because if it puffs you up,
right,
you know, I mean, Satan is the perfect example of that, would not be?
right. So something that, you know, either way, good or bad, expands.
But the leaven of Yahweh's word, this is why you have from John the Baptist, you have the kingdom of Yahweh being preached. This is the leavening. This is the new loaf, and it's not without coincidence that the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, is the wheat harvest. It is when Yahweh says, "You shall bring an offering," and it has leavening in it, no blood. Yahweh says you cannot have blood and leavening on the altar. But the blood is already, part's been taken care of. So now you are a new loaf. So just like in the show, like in the tent of meeting, what do you have? The showbread. Right in front of the most set apart place on the face of the earth, which is where Yahweh would come down in the cloud and dwell. And there's the showbread. So we are that new loaf if we follow Yahweh's commandments. Yes. Oh, yes, sir.
I was just thinking about this business.
With the what?
The Israelites made a cow. Brass.
Oh, you're talking about when Moses tarried to come down and they made the golden calf?
Cow, you know, and it says Genesis 1:26 that made us in his image. Well, they're just saying that, okay, that mean that they think they're cows too? I mean, like, man told his wife.
I think they forgot to read Genesis, or they wouldn't have been doing that.
You look real good. You look like Bessie the cow this morning. I wouldn't go over too well with the wife.
It's actually clear.
The problem was they just didn't read Yahweh's word, or they wouldn't have been doing it.
We got a whole society of them today.
It goes back to that was a deity in Egypt. They're just a form of rebellion.
Well, they worshiped frogs, you know. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff they worshiped. You know, the rats, the mice.
But they all Moses went and prayed for Aaron because he cared for him because he put that thing together.
Yeah, he lied too. He said, "Yeah, they convinced me to it, and I just threw the gold in the fire, and out that thing jumps out."
I was wondering where were the 70 elders when all this was going on? You don't hear anything about this. Maybe someone went in the ground. I don't know. But the fire came out.
I guess when the kingdom's here in Yeshua, you can go ask him. Because he'll know, I know. So, Howard, I'll turn it over to you. Yes, ma'am? What? Did you have something you wanted to discuss? Okay. Yes.
When the Bible says, cannot serve Yahweh and money.
Okay.
So faith comes by hearing.
Okay.
You can't buy it.
Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word.
Right?
The word, so it's hearing the word.
But we can't live without money.
He knows that.
In the culture that we live
He understands that.
in. If Yahweh comes first and Yahweh and stewardship, that's like the wheat. But if the money comes first, Yahweh gets crumbs. That's like
The tares. Okay.
so they go side by side.
Yeah.
So you always need them, give them money, go up to that.
Yeah.
So we spend money first.
Good point. Good point. Art, I'll turn it over to you. Yahweh bless you.